Hello, ladies and gentlemen. How's everybody doing today? Normally, I don't do videos, but I'm going to do this one. This is called the near-death experience that I experienced in 2010, uh, and how the doctors that I was seeing, basically, I blame them for the one doctor. I blame him for it happening. Uh, in November of 9th of 2010, I went to see my doctor because I was just getting over pneumonia, and I was still coughing up a lot of phlegm, and so he wanted to order a chest x-ray. I said okay, so I got a chest x-ray done, and come back about a month later on December 9th, and seen him for my Christmas and for my birthday, which is only 5 days on down the road, on the 14th. Okay. I got informed that I got congestive heart failure, and that is caused by whatever. I guess I don't know, but anyway, the medicine that I was on was the right type of medicine that I was supposed to be taking for that. Well, he changed it. He changed it to this other medication and to Lasix. I wasn't really retaining any water anyway, but so I started taking this other medication, and on the 12th of December, I was sleeping, and my heart stopped. It just stopped dead in its tracks. Now, at the time, I said I was sleeping, but I was also having a dream. I used to drive a truck for a living, 18-wheeler, and I was driving one of those 18-wheelers. I was in Texas. I was coming up out of Houston, and the scales down there were open, and I blew right by them because there was a lot of trucks in the scales, and anyway, I just blew right by him. I was running empty for some reason. I don't know why, but I was running empty. I figured, well, there's no need for me to stop. I'm running empty, and I says, the scales are plumb full with trucks. I said, I'll just blow these scales. To hell with it. I did that in my dream, and I didn't know it, but I had a state trooper behind me. The state trooper hollered on me on the radio, a CB radio, to ask me if I'd pull over. And I says, why would I want to pull over? He says, well, if you look in your mirror, you'll see why. And I said, it's a state trooper with a cherry on top. I said, back on the radio, I said, no, I don't think I'm going to stop. He said, what? And I said, you heard me, I don't think I'm going to stop. He said, either you stop or we stop you for you. And I kind of laughed. I says, well, okay, but I'm not stopping. Anyway, I just mashed that pedal a little bit harder. I'm doing about 90 mile an hour. The truck wasn't governed, so I'm doing about 90. He's right on my tail. He's telling me to stop. I said, nah. I look back, now I got 5 state troopers behind me. I said, uh-oh. Done got a posse now. I said, well, guys, I'm on my way home. I got just enough time on the logbook to make it there, and I'm running empty. I'm going home, going on vacation, and I ain't stopping. He says, well, you don't pull over, and we pull you over for you, You're going to have a vacation, all right, but it won't be the way you like it. I said, really? I said, well, that's all right. I still got to go. I said, I hit this button on this dash, and I'm gone. And he says, well, what are you talking about? I says, okay, here we go. I pushed that button and took off like a rocket. I was doing about 180, 190. And everybody was just getting out of my way because I was blowing horn, flashing lights, and I was in the left lane, and I'm flying. I left those cops sitting. Sure did. They were left them sitting in my in the my tail in my dust. Okay. Well, about that time, I got sucked right out of that cab of that truck. And that's when I believed that my heart stopped. Because I got sucked out. The next scene, I'm standing on some green grass. And I'm up in the mountains. And there's a stream of water flowing in front of me. And I can see pine trees. I can see mountains. I'm looking all around. This is someplace I've never been before. And I walked up to a little stream, looked down, and there was a big old fish down there, and he's swimming back and forth. I'm thinking, I should have brought my fishing pole. And about that time, now I want you to listen to this part, okay? Transparent ring forms around me. And I asked the question, what's this for? I heard a voice say, for my protection. As it started going up, I went with it. Pretty soon I'm even with the trees. I'm even with the mountains. I'm top of the mountains, above the mountains. Up above towards the clouds, regular clouds. There was not too many clouds. I mean, it was hit and miss. Well, I just happened to go through one and get top of the cloud. If you ever flown in an airplane where it's real cloudy, you look down and all you see these look like Snow White, and it looked like snow. Well, I'm on top of the clouds. I could see the top of the clouds. So I'm thinking, okay, I'm about 30,000 feet, where the airplanes usually fly. And we're going up. I'm thinking, hey, wait a minute. This goes up too far. It'll go into space. It's 420 degrees below zero in space. I'm thinking, if I make it to space, I'll die. I'll freeze to death. Well, I kept going up and up. Pretty soon I'm thinking, oh man, we've got to be getting close to space. I looked up again, and you ever seen how tires, the black smoke that comes off of tires that are on fire? That's what I saw. And these black, smoky looking clouds went all the way around Earth. And I'm thinking, oh man. And I could feel evil coming, pure evil coming off these black clouds. And I'm thinking, I started to get a little scared, but then I got to thinking, wait a minute, the ring said it's for my protection. So we got real close to those dark clouds. I could hear a woman screaming. I heard a man screaming, begging for help. And I couldn't see him, but I heard him. About that time, those clouds split apart. Those dark clouds split apart. And that is when I seen the bright white light. Now, the amount of love that came off that bright white light was so intense, I don't even think we have words to describe it, but it was a lot. Both my arms that I thought I had went straight up because I thought if I ever get a hold of that white light, I'm never letting go. That's how much love I felt off of it. It was pure love, the purest love I've ever felt in my life. And the next scene is I'm thrown back on some green grass. But I'm in a corner. I got beautiful flowers in front of me, about 3 foot high, about 3 foot deep. And then these two walls, about 30 feet tall. And I looked down one side of the wall and to see where it went. It went so far I couldn't even see the end of it. I looked down the other wall, same thing. The flowers went right along with the wall, so the flowers on the wall went so far I couldn't even see where they ended because that's how far it went. But I did see a building when I looked down the left side of the wall. I saw a building directly kind of kitty corner to me, so I turned around. I walked over to this building, and it looked like an airport hangar. I'm thinking, an airport hangar? Okay. So I walked over to it, and there was people laying on these slabs, invisible looking slabs. You can see the outline of them, and they were stacked up on top of each other, but with space in between. And all different races. All different races. There was white, there was Hispanic, there was black, there was Asian, there was all kinds of races, different races there. Men and women of age about 23 years old, nothing older than that. And about that time I felt a hand on my shoulder. I jumped. I sure did. I jumped. It scared me. And as I started to turn around, there was an older man, older than me, and I'm 61. An older man standing there. He had white hair, white beard, wearing a white robe, and he had a gold tassel around his waist, wearing sandals. He says to me, he's kind of laughing, he says, "Didn't mean to startle you, Dennis." He says, "Welcome, I've been expecting you." I says, "Okay." And I'm thinking right then and there, I done bought the farm, I done died, and I'm hoping this is heaven. Well, I'm going to ask him, is this heaven? Before I could get the words out of my mouth, he looks at me and he says, "I bet you're hungry." Hungry? Well, I thought, I'm thinking to myself, what? And he says, "I bet you're hungry." And I says, "Well, I wasn't until you mentioned it, but I am now." He said, "That's what I thought." He said, "Remember those Subway sandwiches you bought when you were working at the prison?" I said, "Yeah." He said, "I got one specially made for you. And an ice cold Mountain Dew to boot." I said, "Okay." So he said, "Follow me." He reaches in this, or he reaches back behind me before he says, "Follow me," and he the building that was there a few minutes ago is not there no more. There's a little table with a picnic basket on there, and he reaches inside that basket and pulls out one of those Subway sandwiches I used to get and a Mountain Dew, and says, "Now follow me." I said, "All right." I didn't think nothing. I didn't say nothing. I just did what he asked. Then we walked over to this open field. It had some baseball bleachers. Sits there. And so he gets up on the third seat. I get up there and I'm looking around, and I could see a building way off in the distance, and it looked like there was a few people walking around. And I'm looking, squinting my eyes, looking, and he says, eat your sandwich, eat your sandwich. I said, all right. So I started eating, and I'm thinking, okay, now I'm going to ask. I got to find out, is this heaven? And so I was just getting ready to ask him. About that time, he stands up, he's smiling, and he says, I have an errand to run, and when I return, that is when you'll learn where you are. And I looked at him, I said, how in the heck did you know I was going to ask that question, where am I? He just points to his head, says, and I could hear his voice in my head saying, I can read your thoughts. And I'm like, oh, if he can read my thoughts, I'm in deep trouble. I'm in deep trouble. Happy thoughts, have happy thoughts. So, I, thinking, okay, this is heaven, I've died. And there's nothing, I mean, that's it. I've died and this is heaven. Hopefully I get to stay. Hopefully I don't have to get thrown down below but what I saw before on the way up here. And anyway, I'm eating that sandwich, drinking that drink, and as I was taking that last sip of that drink, here he comes. And he's got the biggest smile on his face. He's jumping up and down, kind of like skipping, like. And he says, Dennis. He says, I got a surprise for you. And I says, what's that? He says, well, come on down here where I'm at. I said, okay. I said, let me ask you a question first before you tell me. I said, you say you got a surprise for me, right? He says, oh yeah. I'm going to like it? He says, oh yeah, you're going to love it. I said, okay. I'm thinking that, yes, I've died, this is heaven, and I get to stay. This is what I'm thinking, okay? He says, what I want you to do is face me. Put your hands up beside your eyes like this. That way you block off the side view. He says, when I count to 3, I want you to turn around. I said, okay. He's 1, 2, 3. I turned around, took my hands down, turned around, and lo and behold, there stood my late grandmother and grandfather that I was very, very close to growing up. Feet hit the ground, and I said, feet don't fail me now. Took off running from my grandmother. I gave her a big old hug and a kiss on the cheek. But she looked different. She looked young. She looked like one of my aunts that was, which would be one of her daughters. And now, my grandfather, I recognized him because my mom had a photo of him when he was 23. She had it hanging in the front room of our house for years, and we saw it in a hallway. Every time we go by it, walk by the hallway, we'd see it. So I recognized him. But Grandma, young, I didn't recognize. She looked like one of my aunts. And, but I knew it was her. And I gave her a hug. Now, my grandfather was old-fashioned type man. He didn't believe men should hug. And I mean, oh, no. Men don't hug and kiss. No. He says, if you want to greet me, you will take my hand and shake my hand. He told me that at 12 years old. He said, men do not hug and kiss. I said, okay. So I took his hand, and I said, Grandpa, I know you don't believe in hugging, but can I give you a quick little hug on the, and, he said, yeah, go ahead. So I gave him a quick hug, and of course I'm shaking his hand, and that's when I started crying. I'm not going to lie. I crying like a baby. My grandmother looks at me and she says, "Why are you crying, Dennis?" And I says, "Well, Grandma," I says, "it's been 18 years since I've seen you and 16 years since I've seen Grandpa." I says, "I love you, I miss you." I says, "These tears aren't of sadness, they're of joy." She said, "Okay." She says, "Well, stop crying. Grandpa's got something to tell you." And I says, "Okay." Gramps says, "I got one more thing to tell you, that I know that you paid attention to one of the things I told you when I was teaching how to drive, and it saved you a lot of accidents. I got one more thing to tell you, and I want you to pay attention, because this will be something for you to remember." I said, "Okay." He says to me, "Keep your chin up, keep a smile on your face. Everything will be okay." About that time, I got thrown back into my body. My heart was beating 1,000 miles an hour. It was hurting. I was like gasping for air. I had tears running down my eyes. And it was just about the time I got thrown back into my body and I started to open up my eyes, I'm looking up at the white ceiling, and I could see that. It looked like I could see them, and they're waving to me. It was a split second. I mean, I closed my eye, boom, over it, and they're gone. It was that quick. I later found out from this cardiologist that I didn't have a heart attack like I thought. I had heart failure. It just stopped. So, now, here comes the part of being skeptic. I am a skeptic person. I don't believe in, that I actually make it to heaven. I have no idea. So I called the aunt that I taught, that looked like my grandmother. I told her what had happened and what I saw. She says to me, "Well, you're not going to believe this. I have a photo of me when I was 23. I have a photo of your grandmother, my mother, when she was 23. Held them side by side," and she said her own husband couldn't tell them apart. That's how much they looked like each other. So that was one confirmation, but I'm still skeptical. Okay, this is December. January rolls around, February rolls around, and I'm happen to be flipping channels. I come up on this Christian network, which I don't normally watch, but I decided to watch it this one time. This pastor was on there, and he was talking to the youths about the Bible, how it relates to today's society, and how they can use it. I thought that was pretty interesting. So I wrote the guy's name down, and I figured, well, I'll just check to see if he's got any YouTube videos. Maybe I'll listen to see what he's got to say about that, on YouTube. Sure enough, he had a YouTube video that someone had recorded and put on YouTube, and it's called, and this one really caught my attention, "The Last Days of Bible Prophecy." The name of the pastor is Doug Blatchard. So I started watching it, and he goes through all the steps of how it's all going to go down. And he says, if you endure to the end, he says, that's when you will be transformed into a spirit, and a transparent ring will be formed around you as you ascend in the sky towards the heavens to meet your Lord and Savior. I saw that and I almost fell out of the computer chair. That was my second confirmation, because I didn't know about this ring. I had no idea about it until I saw that video. So I've never heard about it. I've never heard that you're going to have a ring around you for protection as you is sent up to towards heaven. Ain't no preacher ever said something like that. And all of the preachers are out there, they're online and saying this and that and this and that. Ain't none of them except the one, and that was Doug Blatcher. And sure enough, that's exactly what happened to me. That ring was placed around me for my protection. And I was astonished. I was like in shock because I couldn't believe it. So, that's my near-death experience. I hope everybody enjoyed it. You can leave your comments on the bottom. Maybe I didn't experience this. Maybe I didn't really go to heaven. Who knows? I will find out in the end. But there it is, ladies and gentlemen. I hope you enjoy.